Well, I'm Chris Palmore here. We're on GratitudeSpace Radio, and this is a special birthday gratitude episode. I've got my friend Deano, who's back in Cali on the other line. Say hi, Deano.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, it's good to see you. You know, I've never used that lead-in, that 30-second clip lead-in with that music. I felt like I was like, oh, we're in a club right now. Let's get this.
I was like, ooh. Well, it also has like stars or something, so it's like, ooh, yeah. Definitely felt it.
I'll have to get some fun, like birthday, like maybe I'll get like a party, like people partying in a birthday, candles being blown. I don't know when I have more time, but
some good dancing.
Yeah, some motion. Get people ready for some birthday gratitude. Well, you know, Deano's been on the podcast before. He was back when we were just doing GratitudeSpace, before GratitudeSpace Radio, before live streaming, before everything. There was Deano. Okay, sound like biblical here or something. Yeah, but I saw that Deano was having his birthday coming up, and as I was telling my father last night, I was like, it's just an excuse for me to talk to Deano, and so here we are. So Deano, you know, you got your birthday coming up, and we'd love just to give you a couple minutes here, take as long as you like, just thoughts on your upcoming birthday. I feel like I'm older than you, but we won't get into that. And you can.
You are.
I'll be 42 this month.
Oh, you're a baby. Thank you, though. I'll take all of that. All of that.
There you go, brother. I definitely look older than you. So I guess that's what we're at.
Well, it is the year of COVID, right? Anything's possible.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, you know, this is a birthday gratitude episode. I was gonna sit there and hit the did I delete? No, there we are, right here. Look at that, bam, and then we're gonna go one more. We're gonna go one more deeper, bam. So, and then hold on, I'm gonna go one more with you just because we can. I'm gonna go bam. Look at that. All right, so Deano, we're at 2 minutes and 27 seconds, and you're covered with banners and logos, and it's your birthday coming up. So please just take it away, brother.
Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, it's my 46th birthday coming up, which is insane and amazing. And I'm happy I made it this long. There was definitely times I didn't think I would. So as far as gratitude, there's two things. So there's one thing that's been becoming really relevant in my life, and it's not a person. It's kind of a statement, and it's become more and more apparent just even in the last week or two. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And then I'm also going to tie that into the person that I'm very grateful for. So first thing I'm grateful for is I'm gay. Yep. So I actually did a video on this, saying those two words. It held so much power over me for 40 plus odd years. It made me feel shame and guilt, and led me to depression and pain and weight on my shoulders. And so I'm very grateful that those two words don't hold the same power over me anymore. Instead, they have transitioned, or if you know alchemy, they've transformed into something else. And now what it represents is me becoming the best version of me. So I'm gay. And I'm super proud of it. And I want to lift up all those other people. And I'm grateful that I've been given that gift, so that I can be a conduit for others who may not feel like it's a gift yet, and help them get to a place where they can consider it a gift too. So I'm grateful for that. Now, the person that's attached to that, and this is interesting, and not a shocker, but it's my mom. So I'm super grateful for my mom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about when I told my mom that I was gay. So I officially came out 10 years ago. But I hadn't come out with those two words until, I guess, yesterday. I'd alluded to it. People who knew me knew, but not the world, never on a public platform. So it was super unnerving. But last week I had felt empowered to do a video. I was talking about authenticity, and it just made so much sense that part of my authenticity was being honest with myself and with others. So now what's funny is about 10 years ago, I guess it was 11 years ago, I knew I was going to tell my mom. The first person in my family I told was my sister, and that started to make it real. And then the second person I wanted to tell was my mom. And we always do a family vacation in Florida. She was picking me up from the Orlando airport. The way I told my sister that Christmas before was I made her pick me up from the airport in Dallas by herself, so that we could have a one-on-one conversation with nobody else around, so that I'd have the courage to say it. And I did. And then my sister was supposed to pick me up with my mom at the airport, and it was only my mom. And I thought, oh my gosh, Darlene's making me do this. Okay, I've got to do this. So I get in, I start driving, right? Because I definitely want to be in control of the wheel of the car when I land this plane, just in case my mom's in shock or is like, what? I didn't want her to pull off the road or get in a wreck. So I'm driving, we're having a great conversation, and there's a lull in the conversation. And so I decide that's going to be the moment I'm going to tell my mom. And so I just said, I'm driving. And I'm like, yeah, hey, mom. And then I'm like, by the way, mom, you know I'm gay, right? And I'm just sitting there, and there's this awkward long pause. And I can feel her looking at me, and I'm not looking at her, because like all the nerves. Because by the way, it's not real until you tell your mom. When you tell your mom, it becomes real. You can tell the rest of the world, you can be with other people, you could even be in a relationship. But when you tell your mom, it's real. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, and I can feel her turning towards me, and she goes, no. Or she just said, okay. And I said, all right. You seem really okay with it. Did you already know? And she was like, no. And I was like, so Darlene didn't tell you? And she was like, Darlene knows. And I was like, well, then Darlene didn't tell you. And I was like, yep. And she was like, okay. And I was like, okay, you're handling it really well. This is a little concerning for me. Like, what's going on? What's going on? And she was like, well, it's none of my business. And I was like, and that's my mom. She doesn't. One of the things I'm super thankful for is she doesn't get in your business. She only gets in the business you want to share with her. She's open. She'll receive any information, but she's not somebody who pries. She's not somebody who's going to tell you what to believe or how you need to think. She's just going to love you right where you're at. And anything you want to share, she's there to be shared with, which is amazing, right? So then I was like, oh, okay, so you didn't know? And she was like, well, no. And I was like, okay. All right, well, you're handling it really well. And okay, so I think, and then about like 3 minutes later, she goes, well, what about Stephanie? And I was like, okay, what about Stephanie? She was like, well, weren't you thinking about proposing to Stephanie? And I was like, mind you, this was like 10 years before. And I was like, yes. And she was like, yeah. And she's like, whatever happened to that? And I was like, so I'm gay? Like, so she needed the time to process. She was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, mom. And she was like, oh. And then she said to me, she's like, well, she's like, are you happier? And I said, well, mom, I don't think of it as being happier or not happier, because it's not easier. Life is definitely not easier. But I get to be more authentic and content in who I am. And so for that, I have more joy and more peace and contentment. I don't know if I'm happier, because being gay is hard, dating's hard. What I want, it's hard to find. But at least I get to have hope. And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, before I never thought I'd get married or have the hope to live in love and be in love with somebody. Anybody that I would have married before, it kind of would have been a sham. It would have been something where I had to pretend. Now I have hope that I can be with somebody and not have to pretend. So in that, I have a lot of joy. And she was like, well, that's all I ever wanted for you. And I'm like, okay, well, that was super easy. Why didn't you just say that, And, but it was really funny, because it was like, I knew telling my mom wasn't about her. It was about me. But the way she handled it was classic mom. And so my gratitude is for having somebody in my life that no matter what I said, there was literally nothing I could say that would ever make her disown me or be disappointed in me or think that I was a failure. But what's interesting is I didn't really realize it till that point, if that makes sense. Because, obviously growing up, we had a lot of struggles. We definitely had our fights. There was definitely times when I didn't feel accepted or approved, hello, high school years. There was things that I thought I knew so much, and I was, so much more powerful, and you just don't get it because you're old. And, no, she gets it. I don't get it. But, and there was even resentments that I held because she wasn't a perfect parent. Right. And so, there was times when all I wanted to hear was her say, I'm sorry, I wasn't a perfect parent. But then whenever those moments would come, it didn't come as sweet as I wanted it or the way I wanted it, because I was positioning it like it was an attack and it was a blame thing. And there was a certain point in my life when I decided, you know what, I'm not going to blame my parents for doing the best they could. I'm going to appreciate them for the sacrifices they made to do the best they could. And yes, it wasn't perfect, because, by the way, they're human and they're not perfect. And so it's ironic. I did have a conversation with my mom, because there was always this point. My parents are amazing, but they smoked all throughout my growing up. And my parents knew that I was allergic to smoke, but it was forest fire smoke. I'm sorry, forest fire or cigarette smoke. Come on. And so they smoked my entire childhood while I was growing up. And but that was never about me. They didn't do that against me. It was just that it was their thing. It was their addiction, the thing that they needed to calm down and relieve their nerves. Plus, they also grew up in a time when, there was commercials saying, hey, you're stressed, smoke. Hey, you're pregnant, smoked, which my parents smoked through my pregnancy, which led to all my fun allergies, or could have, who knows? But so I held grudges against my parents for doing the best they could with what they had. And so there was one point in my life where I realized that I needed to be thankful and be grateful for what they sacrificed, because they didn't have to have me, number one. They didn't have to give me the education, the life, the things that they did give me. There was no guarantees. So one time in the car, I just said, you know what, Mom, I'm so appreciative. Ironically, all these conversations happen in cars, apparently. Just realizing that. So I had a conversation in the car with my mom, and I said, you know what, Mom, I really realize and recognize that you and Dad did the best you could. And you had a lot of pressures, and you had a lot of things going on. And as kids, all we did was make things about ourselves. And I wasn't a perfect child. And so even though you smoked and did all these things that maybe I thought you could have done better, you were doing the best you can. And so I just want to thank you for that. And thank you for all the things you did for us that we definitely were unappreciative of, and that we still probably haven't even recognized. And she just said, oh, well, thank you for saying that. And I am sorry that we didn't always take it into consideration, your allergies and other things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's all I've ever been waiting for. Was that those one more thing, those 2 words, I'm sorry. And all I had to do was have enough humility to recognize that what she did do and who she was and what she gave to me and the gifts she gave. And so by being grateful, I finally received what I needed, which was that apology. And then that also started the process of me recognizing really who my mom was, and unpacking those layers. I'll give you another story. Why I'm grateful for my mom. And this has nothing to do with me. I'm grateful for my mom because this is a story that happened to my brother. So my brother was married, and they to his wife at the time, and they were building a new, beautiful, big house. So they put their house on the market, and it sold like in record time. And all of a sudden, they were presented with this 4-month gap between when they had to move out because they were closing escrow and when the new house would be ready. And my sister-in-law at the time, her parents had this big, beautiful home, 5,000 square feet plus basement, pool table. And then there's my mom, who doesn't smoke now, is a cancer survivor for lung cancer. She's amazing. But at the time, she was still smoking. My brother hated smoke. His wife hated smoke. My mom lived in a 1,300 square foot house with a basement. The basement was only partially finished, like no pool table, no pool outside. And they were choosing who they were going to live with. And they were choosing between my mom and her family, who, by the way, all the kids had moved out. There was tons of space. They could have had the entire basement, and they chose my mom. And I always thought it was really peculiar. And so I asked and inquired, why did you, to my brother, I said, why did you choose mom's house? That doesn't make sense. And he basically said, well, because mom won't get involved in our business. We can have our fights and she'll never choose sides. If we come to her and we ask her to choose sides, she'll tell us, this isn't my business. That's your marriage. You take care of your own business. And I was like, wow. So that just shows like what my mom passed on to us in such a strong way. And even though I wasn't the best at really adopting that, now I adopt that in my life. So if somebody shares something with me and they're a friend and they're married, it's not my place to get involved. I'll give them advice for them, but I would never share any information with the other person or even say that I've spoken with the other person because it's not my business. If you want my opinion, you can ask it. but I'm not getting involved because it's not my relationship. It's not my marriage. It's not my girlfriend or boyfriend. You need to take care of it. And by the way, if somebody takes my advice, God bless. If they don't take my advice, God bless. It's not my job. It's not my job to be responsible for anybody else. They're 100% responsible for the way they think, the way they feel, and the way they act, and the way they interact. So, yeah, and I got that from my mom. So, like, I could keep going. My mom's amazing in so many ways, but that's enough information for you guys to understand why I'm so grateful and why I am the man I am today is in large part to my mom and the quirky, funny ways that she's raised me and done things so right that I didn't realize, and that I'm super thankful for. So, yeah.
That was beautiful, man. Thanks a lot for that, man. Happy birthday. And, I started this whole thing writing a letter to my mother. So, I totally resonate with people sharing gratitude for their moms on their birthdays. And the fact that you can surprise her with this little video in a couple of weeks.
Excited.
Totally excites me too. I get that. So thanks again, man. You're awesome. I really appreciate you sharing all the stories and happy birthday. And thank you for your friendship, man. Sincerely.
Thank you. Ditto. And thank you for having me on. And thank you for doing this and being part of a movement to help people start to realize that when you give, you get. So if you give gratitude, you're going to get gratitude. And we all need it. We all need to be appreciated. And the best way to be appreciated is to appreciate others. So thank you for leading in that movement. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Well, being a catalyst for gratitude is what gives me more joy than anything else in my life. So you've just allowing me to fulfill my passion and purpose. So,
Brilliant.
Hats off, man. So happy birthday, man. And I look forward to talking with you soon. So thanks, Deano. Well, we're out. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.